Hey guys, what's going on? Tad Steege here again. I want to talk a little bit more about depression. I just watched a video, my friend Steve with My Old Reteacher just forwarded me to a guy named Last Call Beam, and he did about a 19-minute vlog talking about recent events in his life, and clearly the guy's very depressed, and clearly he's in a very bad spot in his life. And being a man who has dealt with depression over the last several years, I thought I'd say a few words, not only about depression in general, but say a few words to him and hope that maybe he takes something from this, because I hate to see anybody going through what he's going through and dealing with the kind of things that he is, and more importantly, feeling like nobody out there understands. Being a man who's dealt with depression, I think part of the problem is being a man dealing with depression. As men, we are raised differently, we are reared, we are brought into this world and taught to deal with things as men. And one thing that we do not deal with very well is depression. And this feeling of isolation, this feeling of loneliness, and this feeling of despair, and we just, for a long time, we shove it aside. This is what I did. I shoved it aside. That's not it. That's not it. I can deal with it. I can deal with it. And it just piles and it piles and it piles and it piles. And the next thing you know, you're suffocating under this weight of just everything riding on your shoulders, and you don't know how to handle it, and you don't talk about it. You just let it ride there on your shoulders, man, and that is absolutely the worst thing that we can do. And it's unfortunate that we're brought up this way to feel like we're less of a man for admitting that we're depressed and for admitting that things in our lives have gotten so far out of control that we can't handle them, and that we feel like we have no other alternative but to take our own lives. And like in Last Call Beam's video, he described very vividly a time when in front of all his friends he tried to commit suicide, and where he's in this frame of mind where he doesn't want to be on this earth anymore. And that's very tragic and it's very sad. But again, to a lesser degree, I can kind of identify. It's very difficult to admit and it's very difficult to come to terms with, but to a lesser degree, I've been there. I've sat there at night staring at the ceiling, trying to sleep on many nights when I don't sleep, thinking it could all go away. I could make it go away. Would things be better if it went away? The answer isn't that simple, because suicide, the person who commits suicide, they don't have to deal with it anymore. The aftermath is the people who do have to deal with it, the family, the friends, everyone around that, and just the ripple effect that it causes. And I really hate to see anyone think that that's the only alternative they have. It's a very, very sad way to live. It's a very tragic way to live. And, you know, buddy, I don't want you to ever think that you're alone. There are many men out there who are depressed, many men out there dealing with it in different ways, and unfortunately a lot of those ways are unhealthy. And that gets down to the main topic that I'm trying to make. Don't you ever let anyone make you feel like you're less of a man for admitting that you're depressed, because that is the very first step to healing. You absolutely have to admit it. Most importantly, to yourself. You have to be able to look in the mirror and say, man, I'm depressed and I don't like where I'm at. If you can't do that, you're not going to heal and you're not going to get back to being you. And that's what I needed. I needed to finally just get my head out of my own ass, look in the mirror and say, look, kid, you're depressed. And there's no shame in admitting that. Secondly, something else he talked about was this feeling like there's nobody that he can talk to, and this is why he resorts to YouTube, which a lot of us do. I do it. You have no one to turn to. You have no one to talk to. At that point, it's time to go get help. And again, this is something else. As men, we're wired differently, trained differently, taught differently, raised differently to believe that you don't need help. You do it yourself. You're a man. You handle your own problems. And that's okay to a certain degree. But when it gets to the point where it's up here and you can't handle it, it's okay to ask somebody to help you lift that weight, to peel back the layers, to pull back the blinds so that you can open your eyes and then start to deal with some of these problems on your own. There's no problem with that. And shame on anybody who makes anybody feel differently. You know? There's no harm whatsoever in sitting down and talking with somebody. It's difficult as hell. The first time I did it, I was scared shitless to sit there and admit to a complete stranger my problems and the things that went wrong in my life, both the things that I was in control of and the things that I had no control of. You know, it was extremely terrifying, but I did it. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you become with it, and the more you start to heal. Last but not least, and this is a slippery slope, not only in general, but for me as well, because I kind of have mixed emotions. I work in healthcare, I work in medicine, so I've seen the practical working side of medication. I've also seen the abuse of medication, and somewhere in all that, I fit in the middle. Somebody who believes that medication can be overused, but also believes that medication has a place in helping people heal, not only from like just general health illnesses, but also from mental health illnesses. Man, it's okay to go on some kind of medication, for at least for a little while. I'm not saying it's anything you have to marry yourself to long term, but it does help you get over that hump. Initially, when my doctor first looked at me and said, hey, I want to put you on a pill, I was like, whoa, easy now. I don't need to be on any pills. I hate taking medication. I don't even like taking Advil, you know. But he talked to me, and, you know, first my initial thought was, you know, I don't want to be on medication because all medication does is put a Band-Aid on it, it masks the problem, and at the end of the day, you don't deal with it. And he said, no. He's like, think about it this way. He's like, the medication puts your mind in a place that's better able to deal with the problems. And it made sense at that point. It all clicked. I'm like, well, you know what? You're right. You know, if I can't mentally put myself in a place that allows me to see the problem and deal with the problem head on, I'm never going to deal with the problem. So I think I'm going to cut it short. I'm not going to go long-winded on that. Again, you know, last call beam. I hope you find a way to deal with what you're dealing with, and I hope that you take something out of my video, maybe take a little bit of inspiration out of it. And any other man that comes across this video that's dealing with depression, you want to inbox me, you want to ask me questions. I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm just an average Joe dealing with depression that feels like he has something to give back, because I feel like to a certain degree I've overcome some of my depression in my life in dealing with it, not only in talking with somebody, but for a short time getting on medication, but then again making some positive changes in my life. I'm Tad Steeds, that's all I'm going to say about it, and I'm out.